Have you ever felt like the people around you are different lately? It's not necessarily that they've changed, but maybe you have. The conversations that used to spark joy now feel empty. The topics everyone's obsessing over seem so trivial. And you find yourself wondering, what the heck is going on with me? Alan Watts spent years studying this very phenomenon, and what he discovered will absolutely blow your mind. Because here's the truth, no one tells you. When you lose interest in certain people, it's not because something's wrong with you, it's because something's profoundly right. The universe is elevating your vibration, and not everyone can keep up. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand exactly why this happens, and more importantly, you'll discover what to do when you realize you're vibrating at a different frequency than the world around you. But first, I need you to understand what Alan Watts really meant when he talked about frequency. He wasn't talking about something mystical or abstract. He was talking about something very concrete. Frequency is simply the level at which your consciousness operates. It's the depth with which you perceive reality. It's the quality of your attention, your thoughts, your concerns. Think of a radio station, or even a streaming channel. Each station broadcasts on a different frequency. If you're tuned to one frequency, you can't hear the others. Not because they don't exist, but because you're not aligned with them. People work the same way. Each person operates at a certain frequency of consciousness. And when two people are on the same frequency, communication flows. They understand each other. They resonate. But when a person shifts their frequency, something interesting happens. The old connections start to fizzle. The conversations feel forced. The presence of certain people starts to drain you instead of energize you. And here's the crucial point. This isn't a problem. It's a sign. A sign that you're evolving. A sign that the universe is preparing you for something bigger. Alan Watts observed that most people spend their entire lives on the same frequency. They're born, they grow, they live, and they die without ever questioning the level at which they're operating. They accept the frequency that society offers as the only possible one. But some people are different. Something inside them starts to stir. They start to realize there's more. They start to feel that the common reality is just a very thin layer of something much deeper. When that happens, the frequency starts to shift, and with it, everything changes. Your interests change. What once seemed important now seems trivial. What once went unnoticed now grabs your attention. You start to become interested in things your friends find weird. You start asking questions that no one around you is asking. Your relationships change. Some people who were once close start to feel distant, not because you love them less, but because you can no longer connect on the superficial level where the relationship existed. And they can't follow you to the deeper level you're moving towards. Your tolerance changes. Things you used to put up with without a problem now become unbearable. Complaining, drama, negativity. All of it starts to affect you differently. Not because you've become intolerant, but because your sensitivity has increased. But wait, because here's where things get deeper. Alan Watts explained that there are different levels of consciousness. And each level has its own language, its own concerns, its own worldview. At the most basic level, people are concerned with survival, food, shelter, security. All their attention goes towards ensuring their basic needs are met. At the next level, the concern is with belonging, being accepted, being part of a group, having a social identity. People at this level will do almost anything to fit in. Then comes the level of the ego. Success, recognition, power, status. People at this level are obsessed with being better than others, with proving their worth, with accumulating achievements. Beyond that, something different begins. The search for meaning begins. People at this level realize that success and status don't fill the void. They start to ask, what's the meaning of all this? And then come the deeper levels, the search for truth, the search for connection with something larger than themselves, the search for the very nature of consciousness. When you're on one level and the people around you are on another, communication becomes almost impossible. It's like speaking different languages. You can use the same words, but the meanings are completely distinct. If you're at the level of searching for meaning and your friends are at the level of ego, you talk about purpose and they hear weakness. You talk about inner peace and they hear lack of ambition. You talk about letting go and they hear giving up. It's not that they're bad or stupid, it's that they're operating on a different frequency. And from that frequency, what you're saying simply doesn't make sense. Now, here's something Alan Watts considered essential to understand. The shift in frequency isn't something you do. It's something that happens to you. You don't decide to elevate your consciousness any more than you decide to grow physically. It happens when the conditions are right. And often the right conditions involve pain, involve crisis, involve the collapse of everything you thought was true. Think about the most conscious people you know. Almost all of them have gone through something that broke them, a devastating loss, a serious illness, a total failure, a period of profound darkness. These events weren't punishments. They were catalysts. They were the earthquakes that cracked the old foundation so that a new one could be built. If you're going through something like that now, pay attention. It may be exactly what's elevating your frequency. What seems like destruction may be reconstruction at a higher level. And when the frequency rises, the interest in what was on the previous level naturally diminishes. It's not rejection, it's evolution. The caterpillar doesn't hate the leaf when it becomes a butterfly. It simply doesn't need it anymore. But here's the challenge, and this is the point almost everyone gets wrong. When you realize you're on a different frequency, the temptation is to isolate yourself completely. Cut all ties. Reject all the people who aren't on your level. Alan Watts warned against this vehemently. Isolation isn't evolution, it's escape. It's the spiritual ego using consciousness as an excuse to separate itself, to feel superior. To avoid the discomfort of being with different people, the true elevation of frequency doesn't separate you from the world. It changes your relationship with the world. You remain present, but in a different way. Have you ever felt like you're on a different wavelength than everyone else? Like you're tuned into a different radio station? You keep connecting, but on different levels, with different people. With some people, you connect on the deepest level. Those are the souls who are on the same journey, those rare encounters that feel like recognition, conversations that fuel you. With others, you connect on more superficial levels, and that's okay. Not every connection needs to be profound. You can appreciate someone where they are without demanding they be different. The key is not to force it. Don't try to drag people into your frequency. Don't try to lower yourself to theirs. Simply be where you are and allow others to be where they are. That's Wu Wei applied to relationships, action without forcing, presence without an agenda. Now, let's talk about something Alan Watts found fascinating. When your vibration rises, you start to attract people on the same frequency, not because you sought them out, but because you've become visible to them. It's like a lighthouse. When you turn it on, other navigators in the dark can see you. You meet, not by chance, but by resonance. These connections are unlike anything you've ever experienced. They're deeper, more meaningful, more nourishing. A single conversation with someone on your frequency can give you more than years of superficial interaction. But here's the paradox. To attract these connections, you must first accept solitude. You need to make peace with the emptiness that arises when old connections dissolve. You need to trust that the new will come, even when it seems like nothing is coming. This transient solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the space being cleared so new connections can enter. If you fill that space with desperation, with forced connections, with attempts to return to the old, you block the new. Alan Watts used to say that nature abhors a vacuum. When you create space, something always comes to fill it. The question is, will you fill it with noise, or will you allow something meaningful to enter? Now, let me tell you about the specific signs that the universe is raising your frequency. First sign, superficial conversations exhaust you. You leave common social interactions feeling drained instead of energized. Small talk, gossip, discussions about trivial things, all of this consumes energy instead of generating it. Second sign, you start to perceive patterns in people, in events, in society. Things that once seemed random now seem connected. You see the gears behind the machine. Third sign, your intuition gets stronger. You know things without knowing how you know. You feel the truth before it's revealed. You perceive the essence of people beyond the masks they wear. Fourth sign, time alone becomes precious. Instead of solitude being something to avoid, it becomes something to seek. You need that time to process, to integrate, to simply be. Fifth sign, the questions become more important than the answers. You stop seeking certainties and start appreciating the mystery. People who have all the answers start to seem suspicious. Sixth sign, compassion increases. Paradoxically, with detachment, you distance yourself from people on one level, but love them more deeply on another. You stop judging and start understanding. Seventh sign, the need for authenticity becomes non-negotiable. You can't pretend anymore. You can't wear social masks anymore. The idea of being someone you're not becomes physically uncomfortable. If you recognize several of these signs, congratulations. You're in the middle of a transformation, and the discomfort you feel is the price of passage to a higher level of existence. But now comes the important part. What to do with all of this? Alan Watts offered some practical guidance. First guideline, don't label yourself. Don't start calling yourself a high-frequency person or an elevated soul. These labels are traps of the ego. The moment you define yourself like that, you create separation. And separation is exactly the opposite of what true elevation brings. Second guideline, maintain humility. Being on a different frequency doesn't mean being better. It means being different. Each level of consciousness has its challenges, its traps, its lessons. The monk on the top of the mountain isn't superior to the farmer in the valley. They're just on different journeys. Third guideline, practice presence. Instead of running away from interactions that discomfort you, use them as practice. Can you be present with someone on a different frequency without judgment? Can you listen without the need to correct or elevate? That's true mastery. Fourth guideline, trust the process. Frequency elevation isn't something you control. You can't force it or prevent it. What you can do is create favorable conditions. Meditation, reflection, contact with nature, silence. These practices don't cause elevation, but they facilitate it. Fifth guideline, find your tribe. Without obsession, the people on your frequency do exist. You will find them. But don't turn this into a desperate search. The desperate search comes from fear, and fear lowers your frequency. Trust that the right encounters will happen at the right time. Now, Let me tell you a story that Alan Watts loved to share. There was a Zen master who received many visitors. People of all types came, seeking his wisdom. Some were brilliant academics, and others were simple farmers, and some were rich, others were poor. One day, a disciple asked, "Master, how do you manage to converse with such different people? How do you connect with them all?" The master smiled and said, "I don't change my frequency for each person. I remain where I am. And from that stability, I can find each person where they are." That's the key. You don't need to descend to connect. You don't need to pretend to be on a lower frequency. You remain stable in your frequency, and paradoxically, that allows you to find others where they are. It's like an adult talking to a child. The adult doesn't need to become a child. He remains an adult, but finds the child at their level, without condescension, without superiority, just presence. But here's something that many people don't understand. Frequency isn't linear. It's not like a staircase, where you climb step by step and never go down. It's more like a fluid spectrum. In some moments, you're higher. In others, lower. In some areas of life, you may be very evolved. In others, you may be completely unconscious. Alan Watts was honest about this. He said that even the highest masters have their moments of falling, moments of fear, of anger, of unconsciousness. The difference isn't that they never fall. It's that they don't stay down there for very long. They recognize the fall. They learn from it, and they rise again. If you're experiencing a setback right now, don't despair. This doesn't mean you've lost all your progress. It means you're being tested, and every test is an opportunity for deeper integration. Now, let's talk about something crucial, the relationship between your vibration and your purpose. Alan Watts observed that when your vibration rises, your purpose becomes clearer, not necessarily in the sense that you know exactly what to do, but in the sense that you feel more clearly what is yours and what isn't. Certain activities that once seemed important begin to lose their meaning. You realize that you were doing them out of social pressure, out of the expectations of others, out of fear, and these motivations no longer sustain you. On the other hand, certain activities that seemed insignificant begin to grab your attention. Things you did for pleasure, without expecting anything in return, start to seem more important than the serious obligations. That's your purpose revealing itself, not as some grand mission that will save the world, but as a subtle call to be more yourself. To do what only you can do, in the way that only you can do it. And when you start to follow that call, something magical happens. You find other people on the same path, people who are following their own callings. And together, even without conscious coordination, you start to create something larger than anyone could create alone. That's the community of frequency, not a formal organization, not a sect or a group. Just aligned individuals who naturally cooperate because they're resonating on the same level, like tuning into the same radio station or streaming channel. And here's something you need to understand about this community. It doesn't form through effort. You won't find it in Facebook groups or spiritual retreats. It forms organically when you become who you really are. Alan Watts used to tell a story about birds. Birds of the same species don't need to arrange to fly together. They simply fly, and those who fly at the same altitude and speed naturally end up together. There's no effort, no planning, there's just natural alignment. The same thing happens with people of high vibration. When you stop trying to find them and simply live your truth, they appear in the most unexpected places at the most improbable moments. And when you meet, there's an instant recognition, as if you've known each other from somewhere you can't quite remember. This recognition is real. It's not some romantic fantasy. It's resonance. Two consciousnesses vibrating at the same frequency recognize each other because they're literally in tune. The same energy that flows through one flows through the other. But be careful of a common trap. Some people confuse emotional intensity with high frequency. They think that because a connection is intense, it's elevated. But intensity and frequency are different things. You can have an intensely low connection or a gently high one. High-frequency connections are generally calm. They're deep without being dramatic. They're intimate without being dependent. There's space. There's respect. There's a feeling of fulfillment, even when you're apart. If you're in a connection that drains you, that makes you feel anxious, that fills you with constant drama, that's not high frequency. That's attachment disguised as connection. And it's worth observing honestly. But let me tell you about something that Alan Watts considered particularly important. Raising your vibration doesn't make you immune to suffering. In fact, in some ways, it intensifies suffering, because you start to feel not only your own pain, but the pain of the world. You see the unnecessary suffering caused by unconsciousness. You see people destroying their lives over things that don't matter. You see humanity repeating the same mistakes century after century, and it hurts. But along with that pain comes something else. Comes a deep compassion, an understanding that everyone is doing the best they can, with the level of consciousness they have, an acceptance that the world is exactly as it needs to be in this moment, for the lessons that need to be learned. That's the paradoxical peace of the awakened, not a peace because everything is all right, but a peace despite everything not being all right, a peace that transcends circumstances. Alan Watts called this being in the world, but not of the world. You participate, you care, you act, but you don't get lost in the illusions. You maintain a broader perspective, even while dealing with the details of everyday life. Now, after everything I've shared with you, I want to talk about something important. What you just heard isn't spiritual entertainment. It's practical wisdom distilled from decades of study and experience. Alan Watts dedicated his life to translating the deepest teachings of the East for the West, and I've dedicated considerable time to bring this to you in a way that makes sense for modern life. If this content resonated with you, if something struck a deep chord in your soul, I invite you to express that in a concrete way. The super thanks button down there isn't just a button. It's a way for you to say, "This message reached me." It's a way to actively participate in the dissemination of this wisdom to other people who are also feeling that they're shifting their vibration. Every person who supports this work is helping to create a network of elevated consciousness, is contributing to more souls awakening to who they really are. If you feel the call, click that golden heart. And if you don't feel it, that's okay too. The message is free. It always has been. It always will be. Now, let me give you some concrete practices for navigating this shift in frequency. First practice, energetic audit. For 1 week, pay attention to how you feel after each interaction. Which people leave you energized? Which ones drain you? Not to cut off relationships, but to understand where your energy is. Second practice, daily quiet time. Set aside at least 15 minutes a day to be in total silence. No cell phone, no music, no distractions, just you and the silence. This time allows your vibration to stabilize without external interference. Third practice, journal of insights. Write down the things that you're starting to notice, that you previously overlooked, patterns, connections, intuitions. This record helps you track your own evolution. Fourth practice, acts of anonymous service. Do something good for someone without that person knowing it was you. This purifies the motivation, connects you with a level of action that transcends the ego. Fifth practice, gratitude for discomfort. When you feel that discomfort of not fitting in, be grateful. That discomfort is a sign that you're growing. Without it, you'd be stagnant. Have you ever noticed that the people around you lately seem different? It's not necessarily that they've changed, but maybe you have. The conversations that once sparked joy now feel empty. The topics everyone's discussing seem so trivial, and you find yourself wondering, what's going on with me? Alan Watts spent years studying this phenomenon, and what he discovered will completely astonish you. Sixth practice, non-judgmental observation. When you're in social situations that used to frustrate you, try just observing. Observe the dynamics, the patterns, the masks people wear, not to criticize, but to understand. This observation develops a clarity that's essential for navigating between different vibrations. Seventh practice, anchoring in your body. When you feel like you're floating too much in your consciousness, come back to your body. Take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Raising your vibration requires a stable body to anchor it. Without that, you can get lost in abstractions. Alan Watts left behind a powerful teaching that I want to share with you as we wrap up. He said that life is like music. The point of music isn't to get to the end. If it were, the best composers would be the ones who write the shortest pieces. The point is the playing itself, every note, every silence, every single moment. Your vibrational elevation isn't a race to get somewhere. It's a piece of music unfolding. Each level you experience, each challenge you face, each connection you make or lose. All of these are notes in your personal symphony. Don't be in a hurry. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't think you need to be somewhere other than where you are right now. Where you are is exactly where you need to be for the next note to sound. And that feeling of having lost interest in people, that's just you changing your musical scale. You're shifting out of a minor key and into a major key. The notes that used to resonate don't resonate anymore. And that's okay. You're learning a new song. And this new song will attract new listeners, people who were waiting for exactly this melody, people who will recognize in you something they're also searching for, people who will become part of your orchestra. Trust the process. Trust the universe. Trust the elevation that's happening within you at this very moment, because you haven't lost interest in people. You've gained interest in something bigger, and that something bigger includes people. But on a completely different level, on a level where the connections are genuine, profound, and transformative. And that level is closer than you think. In fact, you're already on it. You just need to open your eyes to see. Now tell me, when did you realize you were losing interest in common conversations? What was the moment you felt something was changing in you? Write it in the comments below, because your story might be exactly what another soul needed to hear today. To realize they're not alone in this transformation. And remember, the vibration you're reaching isn't a destination. It's a portal, and each time you pass through it, a new world opens up. Not a world out there, a world in here. The world that's always been here, waiting for you to have eyes to see. The universe is elevating you. This isn't a problem to solve, it's a gift to receive. Open your arms, open your heart, and let the elevation happen. You're not losing anything. You're gaining everything. Everything that really matters. Everything that has always mattered. Everything you came here to discover. The vibration is rising, and you're ready. You always have been. And one last thing before you go. Alan Watts frequently reminded his students that the spiritual journey isn't a straight line. It's more like a spiral. You go through the same themes multiple times, but each time at a deeper level, each time with more clarity, each time with more compassion. So if you feel like you're revisiting old issues, don't get frustrated. That doesn't mean you haven't evolved. It means you're deepening. The same lesson reappears because now you can learn a deeper layer of it. And this disinterest in people that you're feeling, it will also evolve. First comes detachment, then comes acceptance, and finally comes something that seems contradictory, a new kind of interest. An interest that isn't based on need or lack, an interest based on pure appreciation of existence. You will become interested in people again, but in a completely different way. You'll see them as unique expressions of the same mystery that you are. Each person, a different window into the infinite. Each conversation, an opportunity to witness the universe knowing itself. That's what awaits on the other side. Not isolation, true connection, not superiority. Profound humility, not distance, real intimacy. The vibration keeps rising, and you're surfing the wave. Enjoy the ride.